Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Get Your Popcorn. I want to start off this episode. I talked about it a few episodes ago, but I thought I'd just bring attention to it with the humanitarian crisis with the genocide going on in Gaza right now. I have some links posted on my Instagram and my TikTok taking you directly to the Red Cross. It doesn't go through me, but if you have any money to donate to the Red Cross to help with humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza, it's something small that you can do. Be sure to write to your local representatives about more that we could be doing to help the people there. This is an absolute crisis that cannot continue. Please do not leave any comments down below about any of that other stuff. Kids are dying. Kids are dying. I think we should full stop agree. Starving children is horrific. I mean, and I have no affiliation with anything on that. Kids are dying and they need our help. And that's all I'm going to say on the issue. I don't want hateful comments coming at either side in down below. I will turn the comments off. What is most important is that we get aid to the people that are suffering. It's very important. Yes. And I can't, as whatever little platform I do have, and it is quite small, I do feel like I should be doing something. I wrote my local representative about what I felt needed to be done. And then I've also set up this and I chat about it because silence is compliance, in my opinion. And we need to do whatever we can to end the suffering over there. Okay, we're continuing on our summer Spielberg with Jurassic Park. Last week was super fun with The Last Crusade. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining me. We had such a fun discussion. I think we talked for like 20 minutes beforehand, too, before we actually hit record. Brian's awesome. Make sure to check out his podcasts, both Midnight Film Reviews and The Late Fees Files. Both are super great, really interesting. I think he's on his second episode of the Late Fees File. It's really good. I just listened to it. So yeah, be sure to check out Brian's content. And then I've got some really, really, really exciting guests coming up, guys. Some people like I can't believe that are going to be on the show. I've got a couple of people that are coming up to deep dive. I'm going to do an upcoming episode of Sinners, and there's going to be Scooby-Doo too, and Frankenstein, because I'm doing all spooky movies for September and October. And then I've got a couple of bonus episodes coming up. One I'm recording on Saturday. I can't wait to drop these episodes. I've got another one booked in September. Yeah, I cannot wait for these upcoming guests, guys. I'm so excited. Some of these people I've been following for like a while, so they feel like content creator celebrities to me. So I'm super stoked. So thanks again, everybody, for listening. And we'll jump into Jurassic Park. So as a kid of the 80s, I grew up in Jurassic Park. I don't exactly remember when the first time I watched it was. It was probably too early. I think if you're a younger sibling, like if you're like further down the line, I'm 3 or 4. So by the time that you get to 3, like your stuff is not being filtered. Like you also don't have a say over the remote. So if Jurassic Park was wanting to be watched, we were watching it. This film is just magic. It's, I think, part of like encapsulate what's so great about Spielberg is we've got like this essentially this super heartfelt story that is like amalgamated within like special effects and creatures and fun action sequences, and it's got a little something for everybody. And for me, this like, there was a big, I don't know if it's still a thing, but like dinosaurs, because of this movie for kids in the 90s, were huge. We had like The Land Before Time. Museums really heavily focused on dinosaurs. Like there's a lot of stuff within TV shows and whatever that all played on this. So the cultural impact of Jurassic Park, I don't think can really be like it can't be overstated. This film, like, I think fundamentally changed like a lot of the 90s, and I think it holds up really well today. Some of these movies I've been rewatching and I'm like, ooh, like I don't like this as much. The Graduate was a big one where I was like, oh, in retrospect I don't love this as much. There's things I really find that I can pick apart. Temple of Doom, I was like, looking at it through today's lens, it isn't quite the same. But Jurassic Park, I was like, this is a perfect movie. This is a perfect film. And to think what is crazy about this film is like Spielberg literally walked off the set of Jurassic Park and walked onto the set of Schindler's List. I won't be covering Schindler's List this year. I'm actually going to do Summer of Spielberg next year. I've already decided. Because I'm going to be doing The Color Purple at the end of the month. And The Color Purple for me is such like a shattering movie that I just wasn't prepared to do that as well as Schindler's List. I'm also going to do E.T. later in the month, and I'll deep dive that when I get to that episode. But for me, I've seen E.T. once. I've yet to rewatch it. I watched it. My mom showed it to me 2 weeks after my parents announced that they were getting divorced, which is like a diabolical time to show your kid E.T. And I'm like still a little traumatized, but with those two movies, and I know it sounds so stupid to say I can't watch Schindler's List because I'm watching E.T., but I can't do so many movies that are going to hit so hard emotionally, like back to back to back to back. Because I do take film so seriously and I am watching so closely, like I'm right there. I'm sitting right there. And I did watch The Fabelmans, which is now in my top 4, but that was also a really hard watch. It hit on a lot of things for me, like it would hit really close to home. And I was like, okay, like emotionally, like I'm spent for August. So Schindler's List will be next summer. We'll do another summer of Spielberg. There's so many. I might end up being able to do Spielberg movies for like 3 or 4 summers in a row. Anyway, Jurassic Park. I think this is a perfect film, and it's got so much to it, and it's not just a dinosaur movie, and there's a reason why these remakes, spin-offs, or sequels, whatever you want to call them, they don't hit. And it's partially because the casting's bad, and the writing isn't good, but like there is magic in the film direction of Spielberg. There is just some X factor in his direction. Where you're like, I can't quite always put a pin in it, like, but I'm like, it's just the pin of like Spielberg. Like I just know like his magic like touched this film. It's like when you watch old Disney movies before Walt died, you're like, this has the fingerprints of Walt Disney on it, and it is magic. And Spielberg has that same thing for me, where I'm like, there's just something about Spielberg that just transcends the film in a way I can't quite describe. And Jurassic Park is like this, and so excited to watch it again. It made me so excited. My she's only a toddler, but I was just like, can't wait till you're like 7 and I can show you this, because she wanted to watch it with me, but she'd gone to bed and I was like, no, like these aren't, like, we're not, this will be too scary. We're more in the Scooby-Doo time. So she's gonna watch Scooby-Doo with me when I do that upcoming episode. Emma of the Impact will be on that one. I can't wait. Shout out Emma. I can't wait. And I'm also going to be on her podcast, so that's pretty exciting. But yeah, my daughter will watch that one with me because she's a little more in like the Scooby-Doo era of scary. Jurassic Park is very visceral even as an adult. It's like the sequences are so tight. They're so effective. So Jurassic Park is actually based on a novel by Michael Crichton that was initially developed as a screenplay, and then was developed as a screenplay. They converted it into the book, and then of course converted it back into the movie. So there was a bidding war from the major studios. Essentially what had happened is they had gone into discussion with Spielberg about it. Spielberg had kind of agreed, and they were like, hey, we don't really want a bidding war about it. But then when they found out how much money they could make, they had a bidding war. So between the major studios, we had Warner Brothers, who wanted Tim Burton to direct it, which, how weird would that? I can't even imagine that weird alternate timeline. Columbia Pictures, who wanted Richard Donner to do it, and he had done Superman and Lethal Weapon, and the 20th Century Fox, which was directed by Joe Dante, which of course Spielberg produced, and then of course Universal with Spielberg. So the film rights were purchased for $1.5 million, and Spielberg agreed to direct due to just like a lifelong fascination with dinosaurs. I mean, this has Spielberg written all over it. So they pretty much storyboarded the entire movie within a couple of weeks of purchasing the rights. Spielberg was quoted as, I was really trying to make a Jaws sequel on land. Michael Crichton, so the author of the book, wrote the original script with reluctance, as he had like said that he was like emotionally and just like done. Like he had completed his novel, he was done with the characters, so he agreed. But he had other writers come on to kind of fine tune it. Scotch Marmo was then hired, and she did her own thing. She didn't really look at the original draft. She did not include Malcolm as a character. He was sort of amalgamated with a few. And she had a few changes from the novel where Hammond stays behind on the island and doesn't die. Her and Spielberg worked really closely. He gave her continuous notes, and eventually he just got to the point where he was like, you know what, this isn't working. So she was let go in 1992, which is crazy because this film drops in 93. David Coep, I hope I'm saying that right, was then hired, and he didn't want to rework other scripts, so they again started from the beginning, which is crazy because again, we're in 1992 here. And he didn't read the original scripts either, but they did send them to Scotch Marmo for feedback and rewrites and things. They then added the Malcolm character into this script because Spielberg had auditioned Jeff Goldblum and loved him. And he was like, no, this is like, I just need this guy in the film. And like, slam dunk choice. Jeff Goldblum like is just synonymous with Jurassic Park. Like there is one in the same way that he's just perfectly cast as the wizard in Wicked. So they eventually finished the script like literally right as production began. So casting for the film, there's Sam Neill, who plays Alan Grant. He's sort of our protagonist. He's a paleontologist. They wanted initially somebody like Kurt Russell to be in the title role, which I think he would have done a really great job, but he was too expensive. Universal did not want to spend the money that this film was going to cost, and then they offered it. There's some talks with Harrison Ford and Tim Robbins, but they turned it down. But again, like they imagine at that time are probably at least Harrison Ford is much more expensive than Kurt Russell, I would think. And then we have Laura Dern, who plays Ellie Slatter. So she is the girlfriend of Alan Grant, and the part was initially offered to Robin Wright, and then she passed. Helen Hunt and Gwyneth Paltrow also auditioned, but it ended up going to Laura Dern, who's awesome. And then, of course, we have Jeff Goldblum as Ian Malcolm. There was no other choice for him. And we have Richard Attenborough, who, if you're a fan of nature documentaries, he's the older brother of David Attenborough, who's the narrator of a lot of those. And he actually hadn't acted in like 14 years since a movie called The Human Factor, but he had quite a successful run as a director. He directed Chaplin, which is a really great movie with Robert Downey Jr. Be sure to check that out. He directed Gandhi, which, meh. And A Chorus Line. We have Bob Peck as Robert Muldoon. We have Martin Fierro as Donald Morrow. B.D. Wong as Henry Wu. This character was very, very big in the book, and it was largely condensed to essentially one scene in the film, which really upset B.D. Wong, and he felt it was racially motivated. I can't comment. I didn't find anything that suggested that other than his comments, but I'm not one to take away somebody else's experience. This is what he has been quoted years later in saying. We have Joseph Mazzello as Tim Murphy, Ariana Richards as Lex Murphy. We have Samuel L. Jackson, so this is a really like early one of his. He's done Goodfellas, but not much. This is pre-Pulp Fiction days. And he was actually cast at the recommendation of Whoopi Goldberg. And we have Wayne Knight as Dennis Nedry. So filming for the park was broken down into a few things. So the exterior shots are shot in Hawaii. In Kauai, which is where they shot some of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Those initial sequences are supposed to be like the opening shot where he's going down into that temple. Because Spielberg was familiar with it, and I love this quote. About why he wanted to shoot in Hawaii instead of going somewhere remote. Had I been 26 instead of 45, I might have gone to Yucatan or the Philippines or Costa Rica or someplace rugged. But I liked the idea of staying in a Hawaiian hotel with room service and a pool. So hilarious. I love that. And that's how I feel too. I've got a friend, Brittany, who always invites me traveling, bless her soul. But Brittany travels in hostels, and I am not a hostel girl. No, I'm not doing it. At the end of the day, I just want a comfortable bed. I don't want to chat with people I don't know. I just want silence. Silence. At the end of the day, I chat a lot on here. This is like content creation. I do a lot of this. So my job is very, very social. So when I'm at home, like I don't like to talk. Like obviously I interact with my child, but when she's in bed, my headphones are in and I'm listening to other podcasts constantly. I'm listening to Blank Check. I'm listening to What Went Wrong. I'm listening to midnight film reviews. I'm listening to quite a number of them. I like silence. So hostels and meeting people and all that kind of stuff, not for me. I'm not much of a traveler to begin with. I more so watch other people do stuff in movies, which I'm boring. Like I'm real boring, guys. Anyway, so I related to Spielberg hard in this. Like, not that I would travel to Hawaii anymore after reading so much stuff about what the indigenous people say about how detrimental tourism is there. But if I were to vacation one day, it would for sure be somewhere comfortable and not in a hostel and not somewhere rugged. I'm not a rugged girly. So the exterior shots all shot out there. They shot at various construction sites. They really did construct the exterior building for the visitors center, and they built this. The pens were all done with extensive fencing, which you don't see that much, but they wanted a real feel feel for it. So I think it's something like 60 meters or something crazy in fencing that was very, very expensive that you barely see. They ended up having to shoot, and part of the reason they wanted to shoot outdoors is they wanted it to have like a real feel as opposed to like they're quoted as saying like a Disneyland vibe. There's a really good documentary. I'm going to link it in the comments below. Be sure to check that out. It's just the making of Jurassic Park. That is where like I largely got a lot of this information on. For the park vehicle, they made a deal with Ford, and they provided Explorers, and then they like customized it for the vehicles that move through the park that Alan and Ellie are in, and they built them on what looks like tracks, so no one's driving, but actually the drivers were driving in the very back. They had like built like hidden compartments so that they could drive through that. So all the interior shots were shot on a soundstage. So one of the things that I think everybody talks about, and we actually talked about it, Brian and I, last week, is the special effects in this. They did a hybrid of practical effects, building large structures, large dinosaurs, as well as CGI. And then they shot in low light and kind of mirrored everything together, amalgamated some of it's done with puppetry. And Spielberg wanted this because he wanted it to feel real. He initially wanted all animatronic life-size dinosaurs, but that just wasn't feasible. So it was them and then Industrial Light and Magic that kind of combined this. But they did build full-scale dinosaurs for a lot of it, just not all of it. Like you can see, I think it's the Brontosaurus in the initial sequence. Like you can tell that those are CGI. But ultimately, like the effects have aged super well. Like from I feel like there's some point where like special effects revert a little bit. But in like for 1993, like it's incredible. So these full-scale dinosaurs were essentially latex built over mechanics, as well as puppets. Steven Spielberg also had a Jack Horner, and he was basically in charge of movement. And so they went with the theory that they do talk about in the film that dinosaurs are not reptiles, that they're actually like the predecessors to birds. And so a lot of the movement is based on that, particularly the raptors, which again, they talk about in the film, but that was like the theory that they were running with. And you can tell like the movements, like they wanted it to feel like a real and not some other alien thing like ET or whatever. They really wanted it to feel real. So like I said, with post-production, like Spielberg's like timeline was tight with this. Like he literally like post-production started and Schindler's List pre-production and production started right away. So he was actually editing. So they'd edit, and then Spielberg was in Poland shooting Schindler's List, and they'd have like teleconferences as they were editing. So this film was a crazy success. Reception is 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Letterboxd 4.1 out of 5. I gave it a 4. With my comment that I drafted so cleverly being not one big pile of shit. Same cannot be said for the sequels and reboots. Roger Ebert said, "We see them early and often, and they are indeed a triumph of special effects and artistry. But the movie is lacking other qualities that needs even more, such as a sense of awe and wonderment and a strong human story values. It's clear seeing the long-awaited project that Spielberg's devoted most of his efforts into creating the dinosaur efforts. The human characters are a ragtag bunch of half-realized, sketched-in personalities who exist primarily to scream, utter dire warnings, and outwit the monsters." Agree with that. I think that the characters are developed enough for what the story needs them to be. I think with the little backstory with Ellie and Alan, about her desire to have children and him not wanting to, and his Alan's story arc of finding, seeing how he could interact with children under these like super stressful circumstances, like, and how he develops this like, you know what, I could do this, like I do want that, I see the benefit of this, I see why people like this, why people like spending time with children, which I think is developed. I just think it doesn't like smack you in the face. And it doesn't need to for this film. Like, this is an action adventure monster movie, essentially. And I think we do have character development, which is a lot more than a lot of films in this genre, particularly if we look at the new Jurassic Park. We're comparing that god-awful one with Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt. I haven't seen anything beyond that first one. So we compare that to this one. Like, it's not even close. It's like apples and rotten bananas. Like, this film does have character arc, and it does have development, and you do care about the characters. And one of the strengths, I think, of Spielberg's direction is the kids aren't annoying, and the screaming isn't annoying. This isn't a film full of like Willie Scott. The screams are appropriate to what's going on. And each character is likable other than the villains for their own, different way. And the kids particularly are not just screaming into the camera. Like they're doing a really, really good job. So I don't agree with Roger Ebert. Normally I do. He still gave it 3 out of 4 stars, I believe. Varieties. So Todd McCarthy said, still none of the problems of this film matter once it clicks into high gear. When a storm strands two carloads of Hammond's guests in the middle of the park at night, a T-Rex decides it's dinner time. In a terrifically suspenseful, sustained sequence, the ferocious monster attacks the vehicles and its inhabitants, chowing down one on one and terrorizing the others, particularly the children. Suddenly, after a fitful first hour, Spielberg pulls off one of the most exciting pieces of his career, highlighting the stunning shot of the T-Rex in the rearview mirror and a climax by a gag lifted from Buster Keaton's Steamboat Bill Jr. I don't really think there are a lot of problems in this film. I think it's well done. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars just because it's doing everything it needs to. I really like it. My favorite one of this type of genre-ish is like this like action adventure is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I just liked it better. I thought there was a little more to it, but this film is awesome. And like Spielberg's top tier films, you're like, I'm comparing masterpieces, like it's hard. And I think part of that is like people do have such a high bar for Steven Spielberg that critics always try to find something wrong with his films because like you're expecting a masterpiece every single time. I don't know. That's in my opinion. So awards, this was nominated for best sound editing along with Cliffhanger, The Fugitive, Geronimo, and Schindler's List. It won. It was nominated for sound effects for Cliffhanger against Cliffhanger, The Fugitive. It won. And visual effects with Cliffhanger, The Nightmare Before Christmas. It also won. And this was a big year. This was when Spielberg got his best director for Schindler's List and that won best picture as well. Like this, like I think every category had a Spielberg film in it. Like it was crazy, except for best original song or something. But yeah, this film was incredible. The legacy of this is crazy. So let's dig into the plot. So we open with a shot and it is a crew of people and there's a big containment cage and there's something kind of rattling around and freaking out and it's all high security. There's many of them. They all have tranquilizer guns and a bunch of stuff. And it goes to click this cage into like a pen. And this monster we see that like it's like half, we can't really totally see it, but it does like it kind of does look like what we think a dinosaur does. It ends up killing one of the people that are trying to contain it. We then cut to a scene with John Hammond, who is the creator of this park, and one of his investment lawyers named Donald Gennaro is talking to him and being like, hey, look, like we're going to pull funding, like you need to secure a sort of a stamp of approval of safety from experts. And so then we cut to a dig site where we see Alan Grant and Ellie Slatter. They're digging and they find a raptor. And I don't know why there's like a little kid at this dig site. They don't really explain that. But essentially this kid says they're not scary. Alan Grant kind of rips into this kid and he picks up a claw and he is showing him and explaining all the damage. He talks about the raptors are pack hunters, how they attack patterns, how they can see you unlike a T-Rex even if you move. And he pretends to slash this kid apart with the raptor claw, which is great. So after that, they're walking back to their trailer and Ellie is like, you didn't have to do that to the kid. And they have this little discussion about wanting kids and it's very clear he doesn't. So they get back to their trailer and Hammond is there, like I said, the owner of Jurassic Park, and he doesn't really tell Alan and Ellie kind of what they're going to be walking into, but essentially says like, this is your area of interest and specialty and I want you there. We then see a scene with Dennis Nedry, who is a programmer for the site, does not like Hammond, and he is planning on essentially selling the secrets to a rival company and sort of screwing him over. And we then cut to a helicopter ride. We've got Grant, we've got Ellie, we've got the lawyer, and then we have a guy named Dr. Ian Malcolm. So this is Jeff Goldblum's character, and he is a chaos theorist, which I don't know why you would have one of those there. Anyway, he is there. He immediately starts hitting on Ellie. Like, he makes it quite clear. And Alan Grant, that's like not overly spoken about, but he side-eyes him pretty hard. And they fly to the island. And then we have the very iconic scene where they're driving in the Jeep and Ellie's looking down, and she's seeing all these plants and stuff, and she's like, this is incredible. And we see the shot of Alan where he like takes off his sunglasses, stands up out of the Jeep, and then grabs Ellie's head and turns her. And then the score, this John Williams score, swells, and we see the Brontosaurus walking by and eating, and they are just absolutely stunned by the like magic of this. Then we cut to the visitor center. Dr. Hammond's grandchildren are also there, and they show a little video. And this was done because Spielberg and the writer were having a really hard time with the science of it all. Like, how do we do this? And so Spielberg's idea to be like, well, if you went to like a museum about whatever, like they would show you like a little video, like a little cartoon. And so that's why that exists, is just to essentially condense all the science to everything. So they explain that the mosquito trapped in the amber was essentially how they learned to replicate the DNA, and they've been doing it through cloning. They then go through the tour and they see a little raptor hatching, and it's explained that in order to prevent the dinosaurs breeding from each other and kind of getting out of control, they've engineered them to be all female. They then get into the automatic Jeeps, or we actually know that the Ford Explorers, and begin the tour. But they don't really see any of the big attractions. They don't see the T-Rex. They do, however, come across a sick Triceratops, in which Ellie gets out of the car to investigate. Jeff Goldblum gives his iconic line when he walks past a pile of poop. That's one big pile of shit. So this is when they're first up close and personal. And this is where we see Dr. Malcolm discuss his chaos theory, essentially saying that life finds a way of getting out of control. Like, this isn't safe. Life will find a way out of this. They then have to cut the tour short because a storm begins to approach. Ellie stays behind, though, with the vet, the Triceratops. We then see Dennis Nedry, who's behind because he's a computer engineer, shut down the security systems to deactivate them so he can steal the embryos so that he can sell them for a lot of money. And this, of course, causes all the locks on all the enclosures to fail and the electric fences to go down. And then all the power goes out. So the automation stops. So because of this, the vehicle that they're in, the lawyer, Alan, Malcolm, and the grandkids all are stopped in front of the T-Rex, Pat. And we see this feeding of what's supposed to be feeding of the goat, and nothing happens. But then soon a T-Rex appears. And this is one of these films, guys. I keep describing these action films, and it's so hard because it's just, you have to watch. They can't capture the magic. But essentially, the lawyer gets killed. Ian Malcolm is injured, and Grant protects the kids. And this is where he really tries to. He starts to take them under his wing, and this is the development of his particular character arc. And they flee into the jungle. Nedry is then trying to escape the island. He gets into a vehicle. He gets stuck, and he encounters Dilophosaurus, which initially seems okay, but then spits venom in him, and he kind of falls down through the woods and then is also killed. We're in a big rainstorm also, and we've got Grant and the kids, and they are basically just trying to hide out for safety. They don't know what's happening to Ellie. They're really worried about it, and they essentially take shelter up in a tree, and the kids kind of fall asleep until the morning. Ellie, who has gone back with the vet, but discovered that the systems have been shut down and the fences are all off, and that the raptors are loose, and that the raptors were the ones that killed that guy in our initial opening sequence. And there's some pretty great moments within this. So while they're discovering this, this is what Samuel L. Jackson's character is. He is, in charge of some of the security stuff. And so when they're discovering that the power is out and it needs to be shut down, there's like an outbuilding in which they need to reset it. So he goes out, and we don't see from him, he dies off screen. But Ellie then has to go and find this. And when she opens up the thing, his like hand falls out. And then the raptors are then chasing Ellie, and there's this like haunting scene where she's trying to outrun the raptors, and she's like dragging her leg. It's built a lot of suspense. It's done so well. The kids and Dr. Grant get back to the visitor center, and they meet up with Ellie. Dr. Grant and Ellie are chatting, The kids go off to eat dinner, they're starving, and then the raptors sort of attack them. And they escape, they hide out in the kitchen, which was apparently a very difficult scene to shoot because, you watch the film, it's all stainless steel. And of course, stainless steel reflects. And so they were trying not to have the camera be shown in any of the reflections. They had to move tea towels and a few things and light it very, very, very strategically. The kids hide out. It's a lot of suspense. They're like hiding under covers. We see the raptors because, as explained in the beginning, they hunt in packs and they're kind of surrounding them. They then all meet up again and they are in a room together, and the raptors kind of break through and they're chasing them all around the corner, all through the main thing of the visitor center. And right as we think our title characters are supposed to die, the T-Rex like bursts in and we get that iconic shot of the T-Rex and then Jurassic Park banner like falling. So Dr. Grant, Hammond, and the two kids and Ellie escape onto a helicopter and they get away. And the kids kind of both fall asleep on Grant and he looks quite pleased. So then that's kind of where it ends. Yeah. So it's kind of, again, hard to describe these big action sequences. I have to do kind of a more brief plot, but that is what is happening for Jurassic Park. Again, it's a must watch. You can't go your whole life without seeing Jurassic Park. I never do these action films justice, but it is very iconic. I feel like you've just absorbed it through cultural osmosis if you haven't seen it. So next week is E.T., so pray for me, guys. It's going to be a tough watch. And then I'm also dropping a bonus episode August 9th with Dan Jean. If you're not following him, he is on TikTok, Instagram. His handle is movies you Dan. He's great. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Again, those links to donate. Again, it's directly through Red Cross. It doesn't go through me even remotely. It's just a link to the page. And then, if financial times are tough, and I understand that, but advocate, write to your local politicians. Like, we can't continue to back the suffering of innocent people on either side, I'll add. What's happening to the innocent civilians is horrific, and they are both being used as pawns, and it's awful, 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 awful. No more suffering. Let's do what we can. Happy Sunday, everybody.